Good afternoon and welcome to the COVID-19 Military Support Town Hall hosted by the COVID-19 Military Support Initiative, which is being organized by the Association of Defense Communities and Blue Star Families. This is Tim Ford, the CEO of ADC, and I'm joined today again by my counterpart from Blue Star Families, Kathy Ross-Duquette. And Kathy will be joining us here in a second to share some exciting and interesting survey results that have been part of the initiative already. As everyone knows, the COVID-19 pandemic is impacting every part of our lives and every corner of our nation. We're all in this together, but we understand its unique impact the crisis is having on our military and military families. Our national security can't operate remotely or operate in social distancing, and that means our military families are dealing with significant challenges. Today, we will be talking about one of those immediate challenges, the impact of school closures on our military families. The numbers are staggering. 45 states have closed schools for some period, and a growing list of states around the country are closing schools for the rest of the school year. Over 54 million kids have been impacted by these school closures, including a substantial number of our military-connected students. Every family is dealing with the logistical challenges of caring for kids, and not to mention many families who are dealing with specific challenges if they rely on schools for meals or families who have children with special needs. It's a big challenge with a lot of moving parts, and that's why we're excited to be offering this town hall today and a chance to hear from some of the top experts in the field. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, let me just quickly share more about our overall initiative and its sponsors. The Association of Defense Communities, Blue Stars Families, and the participants of the White Oak Collaborative are joining forces to create a united national platform for sharing information, managing engagement, and developing best practices and policy approaches to ensure our military receives the support it deserves during this pandemic crisis. Over the next few months, we'll be supporting a variety of activities, including providing comprehensive coverage of the crisis and its impact on military and military families through a newsletter, hosting these virtual town hall meetings, and sharing information about how this crisis is impacting our military, our defense communities, and our military families. We're going to be convening military groups and family organizations and experts to identify and advance promising practices and policy solutions. And we'll be creating a repository to capture information and promising practices and lessons learned that can be used now and in the future. This entire project has been developed in the last week, and our first town hall last week had over 1,000 people join it. We're still developing many components, but our website is live now at www.defensecommunities.org/COVID-19. And that will be an important repository of all the information and resources about the initiative and upcoming events. Everything we have is free, and we're offering it to the broadest number of participants around the country. And both organizations have been pooling their resources to make sure this initiative is taking off and taking off quickly. But we're also happy to start announcing a number of organizations that will be supporting this initiative. And today we have two of them that have initially joined as supporters of our activities. The Military Housing Association and American Military Banks Association. We thank both those organizations for their support, and we look forward to announcing some major partners for the initiative in coming days. With that, I'd like to welcome back Kathy for some interesting survey work that we've been doing as part of the initiative and is tied directly to the issues we'll be covering today. Welcome, Kathy.
Thanks so much, Tim, and thanks for your partnership. As part of the COVID-19 Military Support Initiative, we launched a pinpoint survey to try to get in real time the issues that are affecting military families around the country and overseas, and to tally those as they go. And we had tremendous response and support from others. We'd like to invite all of you on the call to take the poll. You can find that on the website that was just listed, and it's also available on Blue Star Families' website. And thank our many partners for pushing this out. Already we've had over 1,000 respondents, and we will continue to update these. Relevant to our findings today, we're already seeing that about half of respondents indicate that their child is unable to participate in extracurricular activities that are important to them. 31% of respondents have noticed a change in their child's behavior that they attribute to the child's inability to socialize with peers. 13% of respondents indicate their child cannot currently access special education support services they need. These issues can all be particularly keen for military families because they may be living for a short period of time in a location and not have the networks that they might otherwise have for support, or they might be separated from service member or other key members of their household. So we pull these up to have real sense of what's happening in real time, and we'll continue to do that. We have another slide here that we'd like to share. Next slide, please. Thank you. We're seeing a lot about the school closure areas. And these are veteran family respondents who indicate at least one of these concerns. So you can see 66% have children who cannot participate in activities that are important to them. Again, we see that high level of concern about special education support. Again, we'll use all of these findings to help inform recommendations that we make and to help identify where solutions might be. One other feature of our findings is that we are location-based, and we're hoping to use these more and more in the future so that we can direct solutions to where we see problems differentiating. And just to share a little bit, we can show you the next page. Here's a sense of where we're seeing some of those different challenges. These slides, as well as Access to School itself, will be posted on that website. I want to point out that we will be also sharing the websites and links to the partner organizations under the collaborative for those who are working with us. We've had over 60 nonprofit and community organizations participating and working together. We'll also post other organizations, so it's a one-stop shop as much as possible to find vetted resources that will be useful to you. So with that, I would like to turn this back over to Tim.
Thanks, Kathy. It's my pleasure now to welcome our first panel for today's town hall. And leading that panel is Rebecca Porter, the President and CEO of the Military Child Education Coalition. Becky, are you there?
I'm here, Tim.
Welcome, and I will turn it over to you to begin the discussion.
Thank you, Tim. I want to thank ADC and Blue Star families for their leadership in this endeavor and for inviting the Military Child Education Coalition to put together this session of the Town Hall series. This afternoon, we're going to take a look at some of the issues and solutions surrounding the educational needs of military-connected children in the context of COVID-19. As you know, and as Tim said, many schools have closed, some of them for the duration of the school year. Standardized testing has been delayed or waived in some instances, and students as well as their parents are scrambling with how to meet various academic and extracurricular requirements. Our panel today consists of subject matter experts who we believe can begin to address some of these issues. With us today, we have Dr. Gregory Leskin from the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, Bruce Chavez, the Senior Director of Strategic Military Initiatives at the College Board, Abby Rodriguez, the Texas State Coordinator for Military Connected Student and Pregnancy Related Services, and Judy Glennon, MSEC's Parent Initiatives Program Manager. I'll recognize each of them to provide some remarks about their area of expertise, and after their initial remarks, we'll open up the meeting for some questions. So let's get started. Dr. Leskin, can you tell us about what you do at the National Child Traumatic Stress Network and how it applies to the current environment?
Yes, thank you, Becky. It's a real privilege. Thank you for having me on today's town hall meeting. My name is Dr. Gregory Leskin. I serve as Director for Military and Veteran Families for the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, and we are actively creating resources to help educators and parents, military parents alike, to cope with school closures, as well as help children and families to actively cope with school closures and other related challenges they might be facing in the current environment.
Thank you, Dr. Leskin.
Sure.
Bruce Chavez, can you give us some information from the College Board? I know especially some of the parents out there are really wondering where we're at with everything.
Good afternoon, Becky. Absolutely. First, I'd like to thank ADC and Blue Star Families for hosting this event. And of course, you, Becky, and Military Child Education Coalition for organizing it. These are turbulent times, and we recognize the disruption that it's having on military families. But I'd like to issue the caveat that, as we used to say in the Army, truth has a date time group. And what I'm telling you is current as of this afternoon. But tomorrow, everything could change again. So please be flexible. First off, we did cancel the SAT administration coming up on the 2nd of May. And we did that because of the large number of school districts that had closed across the country. We're issuing full refunds for all of those students associated with that. At this time, no decision has been made on the June 6 administration. The current situation is going to drive and dictate whether we're able to do that. We're looking for opportunities to provide other testing as the situation develops, once it can be done safely and done widely across the entire nation. So until we know exactly what's happening with that, one of the free resources I'd like to point people towards is the Khan Academy. That's KHAN, Khan.org. And they've got 8 full free-length practice SAT exams and free personalized practice to help keep those skills proficient and keep students busy, on task and on target. Regarding the advanced placement exams, we are not doing AP testing in schools this May, as we've done for decades, again, because of the security situation and so many schools being closed. In very short order, we've adjusted how we do the AP exams, and we're going to secure online 45-minute exam available for all students who have registered. It's going to be a free response exam, no multiple choice questions, and it's going to cover approximately 75% of the course material, recognizing that many schools are closed and not able to complete the full year of AP instruction. We've also decided that we're going to make free AP resources available to individuals, to all students. And we're starting tomorrow with AP review lessons on our YouTube channel. And there'll be one a day for all of the AP subjects. These are designed to help students refresh and prepare for this exam. On the 3rd of April, we'll publish when the online test windows will be open. And for each exam, there'll be 2 windows, 2 different days that students can select and pick to take that 45-minute exam. All of this information can be found at the College Board's website. The easiest address for that is cb.org. Across the top of that website is a banner page that will then give you information specifically for COVID-19 reactions and resources. And if you click on that, you can drill into both the SAT and the AP issues. Once again, emphasize the Khan Academy and the YouTube channels that we've got for the free resources to help students out. That's a quick summary. Back to you, Becky.
Thanks, Bruce. It sounds like you all have really been busy over there the last couple of weeks, and we appreciate it. I'm sure that all the parents who have kids that are in that SAT age are appreciative of the flexibility of the your organization as well. Abby Rodriguez is here from Texas. She's the state coordinator for military connected students and pregnancy related services. We invited Abby to be able to talk through what the Texas Education Agency is doing on their COVID-19 website and how that might be applicable to other states. Abby, what do you have to share with us today?
Dr. Porter, and thank you so much for having me today. Again, my name is Abby Rodriguez, and I'm the state coordinator for military connected students at the Texas Education Agency. The Texas Education Agency continues to work with the Office of the Governor, the Texas Department of State Health Services, and the Texas Division of Emergency Management to coordinate and plan the state's response to COVID-19. We have established a COVID-19 website as a central source of information to school districts. We encourage our educators, parents, and stakeholders to visit our website for the latest information and guidance at tea.texas.gov/coronavirus. We know special education is a top priority for military families. So on our website, you will also find under General Guidance and FAQs a button specifically for special education and special populations, where you can find additional Q&As, reminders, and guidance. Texas parents can also now visit txschools.gov/. It provides a meal finder map to find locations near them where local school systems are offering free school meals, both breakfast and lunch, for pickup while school buildings are closed. The agency has also set up a mailbox for stakeholders, educators, and districts to submit any questions they have related to education and COVID-19. That mailbox is disasterinfo@tea.texas.gov. In the past 2 years, we've also developed a collaboration and partnership with our school liaison officers across all branches of the armed forces in the state of Texas. We're in contact with them almost on a daily basis. We know that they're out there supporting our military families by providing school supplies, providing educational resources daily on their social media accounts. And in one instance, we actually heard from a school liaison officer who was working directly with superintendents to ensure that military children that were residing in a particular installation in all housing areas had access to free meals. We know that this information is specific to Texas, but we encourage all of our military connected families, our parents and our stakeholders to really look and check at their education state agency websites, their local school district websites, and again, contact your local school liaison officer. We're proud of how our school systems and our school liaisons around the state have responded to the coronavirus, and we really encourage everyone to stay safe and healthy. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Abby. It really sounds like that TEA is all over this, and I'm sure the other states are as well. I think the pieces that you brought forward on how folks can go and look in their own areas is important. And as always, like you mentioned, the school liaison officers are an invaluable resource. Next, I'd like to turn to Judy Glennon, who is the Program Manager for Parent Initiatives at the Military Child Education Coalition. Judy, what would you like to share with folks who are on the town hall today?
Thanks, Becky. Well, we are hearing from a lot of parents their concerns about instant homeschooling. They're asking what they should be doing or what they are just not going to do. We know that parents who previously were very engaged with their children's education are looking for tools and supports to make sure their children don't have skills regression. But at the same time, we're also hearing from parents that don't think that they are equipped to take on homeschooling, and they're just not going to do it. They are not going to turn their home into a school. These parents are both adamant about their stance on this, and at the same time, they're worried about what this may mean for their children. What we want all parents to know is that whichever side of this you fall on, it's going to be okay. You don't have to homeschool or have a rigid routine for your children to learn. Just remember, children are like sponges. They are going to learn. What most people are doing in their homes for school, especially if their children were previously in a traditional school, doesn't really fall into the category of homeschooling anyway. It's more akin to educational activities, brain stimulation, and that is okay. We need to remember that parents are their child's first teacher, and we don't want them to forget that learning, even if it isn't during official school time, will still occur at home from the people that children look up to, their parents. At the MSEC, we encourage parents to see the potential for learning in everyday tasks. You don't have to constantly remind your kids that they're learning. Just cook with your kids, read to them. Let them see you read and then let them read to you. If they can't read yet, let them tell you their version of the story in a picture book. Explore outside together. Let them make messes and be wild, and then give them the chore of helping to clean up the mess. Play with them and introduce new vocabulary. Talk to them, relax with them, do your taxes with them, and then explain what you're doing and why, and plan a budget together. Maybe give them some play money and a shopping list and let them plan a meal on a budget from the pantry. The point is to have fun with your kids while they're learning, and don't, force them to think that they're learning. This is where the learning occurs, at home, when they see their parents role model these things and they follow along. Just engage their brains in everyday tasks and activities. If your child's school has sent home homework, though, we do want you to try and get your children to complete it. If it's more difficult than you can handle, we love Khan Academy, where you can get access to lessons on just about every topic you can think of, and tutor.com, which offers free virtual tutoring in real time for all military-connected children. We highlighted these two, but there are many other great websites and resources available. Most schools are sending home assignments, and a lot of teachers are making time to connect with their students virtually. So take advantage of that and absolutely ask them questions when you can. We do know that many states are suspending the end of year testing and standardized tests for this year as well. And while we don't know exactly how this is going to impact your high school students particularly, we do know that with it being a global situation, that colleges are going to be making accommodations for this in their admissions process. We also know that schools closing down for the rest of the school year is going to be really disappointing and disheartening for your high school seniors particularly. So find a way to make those kind of celebrations with your kiddos. The bottom line is children are resilient, but resiliency has to be nurtured in our children, and it has to be taught and experienced. We believe that the best person to teach all this is the parent, and the best way to teach our children is to let them see us being resilient, going with the flow, so to speak. But as Mr. Rogers said, it is also important for them to see us when we aren't doing so well. He was very clear about making sure that children learn that sometimes things don't go as we plan and that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to tell our kids that we're having a bad day or that we don't understand everything. From MSEC, if you're looking for specific resources, we are curating a number of things to make it easy for you to find them without having to scour the internet. On our website, you will find this information under resources and then COVID-19 response. This page has information for parents, children, and education professionals, and we continue to add to it as new material and resources become available. Finally, tomorrow at 12 Eastern, we're going to be presenting a webinar on homeschool laws with TJ Schmidt from the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And next Wednesday, we're going to offer another webinar on adapting to a virtual learning environment. You can register for both of these webinars as well as any of other webinar recordings that we have on our website at militarychild.org/webinars. And for those of you that have a parent-to-parent team in your community, our parent-to-parent community teams are not offering in-person workshops, but they are offering their scheduled workshops virtually through their social media posts and networks. They'll be doing Facebook Live presentations and posting them to our website as well. So we've got a lot going on, and we're going to continue to support and provide you with information as it becomes available. Thanks, Becky.
Thank you, Judy. I do have one question about the webinar. Is it tomorrow on homeschooling laws?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that, will that be applicable for folks who are just kind of being thrown into homeschooling? or is it specifically for people who have been wanting to homeschool their kids for a while and want to make sure that they're complying with the different state laws?
No, TJ's going to talk about both aspects.
Okay.
We're hearing from a lot of parents that they may consider moving from a traditional school to homeschooling, and also concerns about the impact of homeschooling moving from one state to another now, and then moving into back into a public school when they do move. So he's going to cover a lot of different areas. It was previously scheduled to cover homeschool laws, but he's expanding that.
Okay, great. That's good to know. I want to go back to Dr. Leskin, because we saw in the statistics that Kathy went over at the beginning of the hour that some parents are observing behavior changes in their children, and we all kind of intuitively know that this is a time, even if our kids aren't sitting and watching the news, they've just got to be under some kind of residual stress from the parents being under stress. So Dr. Leskin, can you tell us what you're doing for that?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Becky. Let me just say, and thank you to the other panelists for your great presentation. Just wanted to add some additional comments and respond to Becky's question. And just from a full psychological health perspective, I think there's good reason to practice not only social distancing, but also routine hygiene, daily practices to maintain health, stop smoking, exercise regularly, all these things that we could do to boost our immunity, boost our psychological health, so that we can continue to respond and support our children and our families during this challenging time to our communities. With school closures, parents and caregivers are providing, as you heard from Judy, at-home instruction using digital platforms and workbooks and extracurricular exercises, many times while maintaining balance of their own work and family-related functioning. So all of these are contributing to the potential for additional stressors on the family. And we recognize this can be a disruptive time that can bring up these kind of behavioral issues. There could be disappointments for kids socially. There can be misunderstandings that children don't have enough information to be able to make sense of why school has suddenly stopped, why they're separated from their social groups. There may be a loss of close connections or disappointments related to any number of issues related to the school year, activities, or learning. I'd also like to balance that with this can also be a time as an opportunity for building family cohesion and togetherness. Growth and positive change and reflection are kind of the cornerstone of a positive resiliency-based approach. And through the NCTSN and our materials, we're putting forward some of the key principles to support families, support educators. This can be done through a number of trainings like our psychological first aid program, PFA through the NCTSN. We're currently now offering skills for psychological recovery that can also be utilized by educators or providers in order to help families address some of the behavioral issues that are coming up for the children at home. But some of the key principles, I would say, are really to establish routine, maintain clear communication, creates a psychological sense of safety for the family, for the community. Some of those trauma-informed principles that we really want to emphasize include creating a sense of safety for the family, for the community, by reassuring, reaching out, encouraging students to connect, encouraging communities to stay connected to the schools, and that could be done through virtual play dates, but it can also include connecting classrooms together digitally. We're seeing a lot of that. Also creating a sense of hope. Messaging hope right now, I think, is very essential. That we can think of being able to reassure our families that we can together as a community address the challenges that we're all facing. And for those children with a history, for example, traumatic stress, for exceptional children who might be vulnerable to the impact of these changes, educators can reach out to caregivers or parents to check in, offer resources, offer individual conferences, connect to mental health or advice nurses in order to support those families. Thank you, Becky.
Wow, Greg, that's a lot of information. Do you all have a website where people can go and kind of review some of that information or download safe caring acts or coping strategies that you've talked about today?
Absolutely. Please access the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, or nctsn.org, where you'll find COVID-19 behavioral health resources, including parent caregiver guide to helping families cope with COVID-19, simple activities for children and adolescents, as well as some of the other resources I mentioned, like psychological first aid and skills for psychological recovery. All of these free and publicly available for you, for your community members.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thanks, Greg. I want to thank our panelists before I turn it over to Tim, because I don't know how many questions we might have in the queue. So
Becky, we have lots of questions. So if you'd like, I can just pose some of them here and see what the group is able to answer. Is that good?
That would be fantastic. Thanks, Tim.
Great. One of the questions came in early was, we know the Department of State has authorized global departure, meaning we have families leaving international setting returning to the States, or they may have PCS'd in the last couple of weeks. And there's a concern here that we're seeing, I guess, some schools who aren't handling new enrollments and families who have arrived and being told that they can't enroll, maybe because the school is closed. Have you guys heard anything about that, and maybe how people can approach that if they're just showing up and trying to get their student enrolled in a school at this kind of challenging time?
I'll open it up to the panelists first.
I can answer that. I think for sure, if that individual lives in Texas, definitely email the disasterinfo@tea.texas.gov email address. I will say that in Texas, it is what we call a local school district decision on what that looks like. So we have seen some districts who have an email address that is specific to enrollment. And then there's other districts that are just posting it on their website. So I would encourage those to definitely email us at the agency with that question, but also make sure to look on the district's website on a daily basis, because things are rapidly changing.
Yeah, Becky, this is Judy. I also would mirror what Abby has said. The best thing for them to do is to check on the district website, because most school districts are going to be centrally controlling this, especially at this time. They will be able to offer the parents a response as to whether or not they're going to go ahead and enroll them and let them, kind of slide in with the classes that they would be, or if they're just going to encourage them to homeschool until the fall. Every district, in all likelihood, is going to be a little bit different, and we just don't have anything better than that at this point. So,
thanks, Judy.
Becky, another question's coming in from someone in Virginia Beach, where 76% of the families are military connected. They're asking about their military family life counselor, who is a real big part of supporting families in those schools, and they're hearing rumors of possible layoffs for this position if the school is closed. Have we heard anything about this nationally? And if that's a concern that schools need to think about?
I personally haven't heard anything about a layoff. Those positions are funded by the Office of the Secretary of Defense. If anybody on the panel has heard that any of those rumors, please let me know. I'll check into it though, Greg, and see if we can have that, or Tim, and see if we can get that back for the audience in future iterations of the town hall.
Great. Another question that came in, we've been discussing homeschooling and virtual learning. I know we're going to get into that a little in the next segment, but can we just, I guess there was a question to clarify the difference between those two. And, you know, is the situation many families are in now where they're taking care of their kids at home? Are they now homeschooling, or is it just digital learning?
Judy, I'll hand that one to you.
It's kind of a combination of both. And honestly, as I said before, they just need to do the best that they can. They're not the teacher. They're the parent who is trying to help their children complete the assignments that the teacher has given them. And if they feel equipped to do that, then absolutely they should. They can always, like we said before, Khan Academy will help you with pretty much any lesson that you have a question about. And I also want to encourage parents to really, really think about tutor.com. It's a live certified tutor on the subject that you have a question about over the internet. It is free, tutor.com/military, and it is a great program. They can help you a lot. But absolutely, it's not school at home per se. It's continuing to follow the lesson plans and things. And honestly, if you don't understand it, don't feel like you're the only one. Lots of people are going to have questions. So email the teacher and see what assistance they can give you as well. Don't be afraid to ask.
Becky, I think we're going to have to wrap this segment so we have time for our next panel. We are collecting all the questions, so please post them, and we are going to do our best to get as many of those answered and provide that information to everyone on the town hall. So keep posting your questions, and we'll do our best to make sure we get answers to that. So Becky, I want to thank you for joining us, and I want to thank all of the panelists in our first panel for joining us. I think it's been some great information.
Thanks, Tim. We appreciate the opportunity to put out the information, and we look forward to providing some answers to those questions.
Thank you. It's now my pleasure to turn over the moderating role to Marcus Lingenfelter, Senior Vice President with Eddentum. Marcus, are you there?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Welcome, Marcus. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, and kudos to you, Tim, and the whole ADC team, as well as Blue Star. This is an excellent adaptation to continue providing value to the defense communities around the country. So I applaud you. Thank you, everyone, for dialing in today and spending some time. I'm going to go through some introductory comments, then I'm going to turn to Dr. Jared Wheeler, and lastly to Mr. Jim Cowan. But first, I want to give some context. Onslow County, North Carolina, home of Camp Lejeune. Fortunately, I was never stationed there. 4 years ago, Camp Lejeune, or Onslow rather, applied for a DODEA grant. That DODEA grant was explicitly used to deploy virtual capabilities, the Onslow County Virtual School, which happens to be powered by Edmentum. It was intended to produce highly flexible, consistent digital learning capabilities, mostly for those unplanned or mid-year PCS expanded libraries for families coming from overseas or elsewhere. However, having those capabilities in place when Hurricane Florence smacked the eastern seaboard allowed Onslow County to pivot and maintain continuity of learning throughout that natural disaster. Similarly, the Virgin Islands had the same experience whereby they went from complete destruction back to full instruction within 10 days because they had virtual school capabilities. Right now, Onslow County has upticked their continuity of learning through the virtual school because they already had the program in place. The reason I say that is since many folks do not already have the capabilities, this capability works. And it can be very easily and very swiftly deployed to maintain continuity of learning through the rest of this semester, as well as into the summer and even beyond, because I don't think this is going to go anywhere anytime soon. So our first panelist is Dr. Jared Wheeler, fourth generation school superintendent. He has the privilege of leading Knob Nostra Public Schools in Missouri. They are the home of Whiteman Air Force Base, where the B-2 Spirit flies from, and they are 75 to 80% impacted. So it is very, very much a military connected school community. Dr. Wheeler, do you want to talk about how you've leveraged DoDEA grants and other capabilities to maintain continuity of learning and how you're handling this current crisis?
You bet. Thank you, Marcus. And I also want to say thank you to ADC for your work and stepping out in front in terms of leading this education push. I know that over the last couple of years, we've seen this take front and center within the organization, and can't say thank you enough to what you're doing and showing how at a critical time you can step forward and lead the charge alongside our ongoing partners at MSEC. So we are very similar to Onslow in terms of our approach, with the exception that we are a relatively small rural school in the middle of the United States. So we initially deployed virtual capabilities through, like Onslow County, through a DoDEA grant. And for those community leaders out there, I want to sidebar and say that I cannot underscore the importance of DoDEA and the program and what that means for our military communities moving forward. So your support and advocacy in that area puts us in a good position when we're trying to tackle everyday academics, but especially something like this. We were able to develop through our DoDEA grant, our Knob Nostra Virtual Academy, which allows our district to deploy virtual capabilities kindergarten through 12th grade for 100% of our students if they so choose. We have embedded that into our regular program, but we've also leveraged that. I know we talked about homeschool a little bit earlier. We've actually leveraged this capability to outreach to our homeschool families. And we have a couple dozen already this year that are essentially deploying our public school virtual program in the homeschool setting. So it's a great partnership, which has allowed us to find a segue to provide the best of both options with both public approach and homeschool. So you may look into that. Our partners at Edmentum through Ed Options Academy have expanded our capabilities in terms of course offerings, but also that deployment. And it partners perfectly with Tutor.com. I know Tutor.com has been mentioned a couple of times, but what you have is you have two former Marines. You have Marcus and Meg on both sides of that partnership. And I know they very well understand how to be agile, mobile, and hostile. In this case, putting that agility and mobility into education through our virtual programming is a great partnership. So I can't stress enough how important they've been. Along with our Ed Options Academy, we have a program called Exact Path, which provides prescriptive, diagnostic, personalized learning paths for our students. We have deployed that into our current traditional setting, but with that in place, we can now scale that forward and expand our reach on that, and really provide our teachers a great tool to ensure consistency, ensure that we're standards-based, and that we're aligned in our approach. So we're looking to expand that program out to additional grade levels to work through this crisis. All of that being said, I also want to say that we talked a little bit earlier about the stress, and we've approached this in a couple of ways, but primarily we've told our team, our parents, our community, our students that we understand this is a very stressful situation with a lot of anxiety, and not only stress and anxiety, but it's elusive. We don't know what the next day brings. So the operational parameters that we've put forward is to move forward with our education, but make sure that we're not adding stress, we're not adding anxiety, that we're here to serve our families and bring them a sense of calmness and a sense of normalcy in their homes. This has also been a great opportunity to really showcase what public education in the United States means. We're so much more than education. It's right now secondary to being the hub of the community, providing those basic services. we've worked swiftly to make sure that we were able to deploy our food services capabilities to our parents uninterrupted. We have that program in place. We've been able to equip our bus fleet with additional hotspots. So our entire fleet now has transitioned from a hotspot to, or from a bus function to a mobile hotspot application, and we're deploying our buses out through our community. So I know everybody dreams of, having a $100,000 vehicle in their driveway. Well, we're going to deploy about 20 of those or 30 of those in the days ahead. I hope those folks like yellow. But aside from those critical things, we also have we focused on responding to what we started out with in the survey data in terms of those extracurriculars. No doubt those have been shut down because of social distancing and essentially shelter in place. But we focused on making sure that what we do is fun, that we're taking some virtual field trips with our students and really focusing on the social emotional needs alongside the academic needs to make sure that we're doing all that we can to support our families in that way. I could go on, but want to not take too much time. Again, thank you to everyone for what we're doing here, and we look forward to standing by to support any way we can.
Thank you, Dr. Wheeler. As always, it's a pleasure to work with you. Turn now to my friend and colleague, Jim Cowan, former Lieutenant Commander in the United States Navy. He runs the Collaborative for Student Success, which as one of their arms of that organization, seeking high standards for school systems around the country, is the Military Families for High Standards Initiative. Commander Cowan, this is certainly a new normal that we're going to be encountering for quite some time. From your perspective, looking through the quality lens, what does quality control look like in the short term and the long term when folks are just trying to handle the triage factor, but also look downrange at the summer remediation and what the fall is going to bring? Did we lose you, Jim?
Marcus, while we're waiting for Jim, why don't we take a couple questions and then we'll see if we can patch Jim into the call.
Sounds good.
One question's coming in from several folks here about, it's very uneven across the country, as we know, in terms of access to Wi-Fi or even having a computer at home. So what kinds of supports are available for families that may not have either of those?
The example that Dr. Wheeler gave about school bus utilization as Wi-Fi hotspots, I think the first time I heard of that was out near Palm Springs, 29 Palms area, where a superintendent did that and totally made the community Wi-Fi enabled by use of the buses. So there are creative ways to get at the Wi-Fi issue. And then in terms of the one-to-one devicing, most communities that I've dealt with have done a survey to examine who has capabilities, who doesn't, and then fill in the blanks if they haven't already gone to a one-to-one. Dr. Wheeler, you've gone to a one-to-one in your community, is that correct?
We are one-to-one K-12, and again, in no small part due to our support from DODEA. But we also have shared out other resources because we have not fully closed that access gap in terms of internet. I know Spectrum has provided free new service activations for families across the country. We've shared that out with our community, as well as the other offers that are being put forward from other carriers. So I think encouraging educational leaders, I know they're on top of this, but families especially, to look for those offers and try to jump on those when they see them. If they have a gap there, hopefully they can close that gap through these offers. Our focus in partnership with the support from the internet providers in a rural area, we have to go out and gap that where the service is not provided. And that's where our mobile hotspots step in.
Hey, Marcus, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Good to go.
Good to go. I think it's pretty ironic you asked me a question about quality control, and clearly there was no quality control in that access to sound there. Thanks for setting up that question, and thanks for having us on. You asked about how we are considering quality control right now, and it's interesting for a group like ours where the collaborative has always advocated for high standards, particularly for military kids, because of how transitive they are, and it's something that's been important for us to advocate for. But given where we are in this crisis, what we're worried about is appearing tone deaf to what's going on. I mean, we recognize that what leaders like Jared is doing, he's on the front line of this, and he's dealing in a literally a national emergency, and is responding in that fashion. I've been impressed with multiple people, like the parents around this, the superintendents, the principals, the advocacy organizations, because they've all sort of flooded the zone with tons of resources. And I would rather have too many than too little. And you heard earlier, there were some great things I think Judy brought up from MSEC around types of things to consider as a parent. Dr. Leskin, I think, was talking about the things to be concerned about with trauma, which are awesome as well. So for us, it's about happy that there's lots out there. When it comes to quality, our next, I think, priority is really around access. And we're grateful for groups like yours through Edmentum, that you can provide a platform where you have that continuity, and there is a significant amount of quality in the product that you're providing to parents that they can access to keep that continuity happening. So, for us, we have to temper sort of the long-term look at what quality is to making sure that we're sort of dealing with the emergency that's transpiring right now.
Jim, looking past the immediate action of right now, what do you see are the long-term ramifications? I, for example, I can't imagine any school board in America not requiring a continuity of learning plan from their leadership team by this fall, because this is likely not the last time something like this is going to occur. Much like the financial crisis required a re-examination of the banking system, this is going to require some re-examination, some rethinking. So from your organization's perspective, what do you think are the questions policymakers are going to start asking after we're out of the soup most immediately?
Hey, Marcus, I don't know if we lost Jim, but I'm happy to speak to that if we did.
Roger that. Go ahead.
I think it's a great question. It's definitely where our mindset is right now. As mentioned, we were in a pretty good position already to respond to this, but we want to continue to lead the way. We're looking now at the potential of how this could affect our startup next year and our continuity. We were looking already at requiring students, instead of offering our virtual programming through Ed Options Academy, instead of an option, we were looking at requiring it, because it prepares them for college and career, where so much of the learning will be digital and online. This has really bolstered that forward and out of necessity. But moving forward, we are planning right now already to be fully capable of deploying 100% virtual programming come fall. To that point, obviously, there's a lot of ground to cover, but we're already today, I directed our tech director to go ahead and acquire additional hardware to make sure that we're capable of doing that. So those are some of the immediate issues that we're addressing. We're also seeking out legal and policy advice in regards to FAPE and IDEA. When you move to a digital platform in this type of setting, we want to make sure that we move forward with full protection for privacy to the fullest extent possible. So we're going to sort that out, and we'll be leaning on our legal departments as well as our policymakers to help provide some guidance during this time. But I think the reality is we need to be ready and have that continuity of operations plan in place to ensure that, because right now it's new, but three months down the road, there's not going to be any good excuse why our school systems aren't ready to respond to this issue.
Thank you, Dr.
Marcus,
Wheeler.
I have two questions I want to get out there before we have to wrap this segment. One is just a fundamental question. It's coming from a family. Well, it says what happens for families with children who might be single parents or dual active duty who must be off from school? Are there supports in place that active duty service members can go to work when their children must be off from school? And I also heard from another listener right now who is saying, is there any idea about opening up our schools for essential workers and so that there's a place for our military children to go who may not have any other place to go during the day?
Dr. Wheeler, you want to handle that second one?
You bet. We're looking at that right now. That's definitely a sticky question in terms of as a public school, how we would respond to not just the military, but all of the families that we serve. We think that we found a way into that, and that's where there's a difference between that FAPE requirement and also just a goodwill, good Samaritan, being able to respond in a situation that is optional for parents from a liability standpoint. So we're balancing that out, and as we say in Knob-Nuster all the time, when our servicemen and women are out taking care of our nation's business, and we know that won't stop for our military, the last thing that we want on their mind is whether or not their children are being taken care of at home. And we know that our public schools have the essential role in meeting that. So we're looking at ways forward, and we're going to find a way to get that box checked, and would be happy to share that once we do.
And Tim,
Great.
to the answer
Marcus,
to the first question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was simply going to offer that we have had discussions with multiple installation and school community leaders about putting access centers inside the gate where children of dual service members can be dropped off in an environment where they can be both coached through their schooling, but the direct curriculum instruction comes from online. So there is someone, I'm not suggesting that it's a daycare facility, although for some younger grades that could be used in that context, but it could be used for all learners. The individualized instruction is coming from some offsite party and the computer, but they're in a safe place inside the gate. I don't know what the current policies are on base these days about child care centers and whether they can be used for that purpose or not, given what's happening, but that is one solution set that could be explored.
The other question I want to quickly get to before we have to wrap is, the virtual schooling and a lot of the situations students end up right now, it was often leaving our students with disabilities behind. These programs are not as accessible to those students. Maybe, Jared, I don't know if it's something you could speak to. How can you specifically address the needs of students with disabilities at this time?
That's a great question, and certainly a big challenge. We, at this point, are going to move forward with full intention that we will provide the services needed, period. And if that means, and again, Department of Education, I think yesterday or the day prior, sent out some pretty good guidance on that talks about balancing out meeting those students' needs and also protecting their health and wellness. We're going to move forward with that. We're preparing already to provide compensatory services, extended school year services as needed to make sure that those students don't fall behind. And one of the great things about public education is we are required by law to provide those services, whereas that doesn't apply to all of the education options out there. But I know across our country, our leaders, our school districts in public ed are going to embrace that responsibility, and we're going to step up and meet that challenge.
And Tim, as a company, we've made a commitment to provide these services, both IEP and 504s, as part of our virtual school services to our school district partners. So in the case of serving Onslow or serving Knob Noster, we provide those services via virtual means to our school system partners. And anyone looking to procure those type of capabilities for their learners or their school systems should be seeking out that.
Great. Thank you, Marcus. I think we're going to have to wrap it there. I know for a fact that we will be revisiting this topic in the coming weeks, and we look forward to hopefully sharing other kind of creative ideas and other approaches to challenges that I think many of our communities are just trying to figure out. So Marcus, thank you. Jim and Jared, thank you for joining us today. And I'm going to turn it back over to Kathy to wrap up today's town hall. Kathy, are you there?
I'm here, Tim, and thank you so much for your partnership. I want to thank all the speakers today for the great information they've shared. This has been a great way to continue the important work of our initiative. We will be posting links on our website to the resources that our panel members shared and back to their website so everyone can get connected. Our next town hall event will take place this upcoming Friday, March 27th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be focusing specifically on how this crisis is impacting early childhood education. Look for more information soon and how to sign up. We also may be making a special announcement about some exciting participants in some of these upcoming town halls, so watch your emails. We have a post-webinar survey we will be sending out. We ask you to fill it out for topics that may be of interest for you for us to hold in the future. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all you do to support military families and our national security. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.